All right, I just finished up John's 383. Now it's not done. I mean, I was over there tuning on it a little while ago. Got Colton's engine, top end done. I got another one to do over there. I got this one. This is Marco's combination. This is going to be a 283. But no, Marco runs truck pulls, and he wants a high winding little small block. So that's what I'm going to give him. I'm not going to tell nobody the cam specs. I'm not going to tell nobody the exact compression ratios and stuff because he's going to race this thing. But clean this block up, put it in the parts washer, clean it all real good. Probably change cam bearings. I got a big solid roller cam for it, solid roller lifters. It's going to be like 12.5 to 1 and up. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much, but at least 12 to 1 or more. You have to run 110 or 112 fuel in this. But it's what's fixing to happen. I'm fixing to jump on it, get the block cleaned up, and get the crank and stuff in. And the crank, this rotating assembly is an original. Man, I can't talk about it without giving away what it is. It's got a very particular crank for it. It's a very, very rare crank. The numbers and stuff on it. This rotating assembly is all matched to that crank. It's very expensive stuff, but it is original, like real deal. So that's what I'm about to do, slap it all together. I got to put the crank, the rods, mains, all that stuff, and check clearances on everything. But yeah, he's going to come up here and pick this up, and it's going to be, this thing is going to sound like, oh, 383 sounds pretty good. This is going to beat the earth. This is an engine with one purpose. She's going to have one job, and that is make power and wind up, and that's what she's going to do. It's like, you know, people get like, say you got a racehorse. That's what this is going to be. You know, you got to let a racehorse run. That's what this is going to do. She's going to have one job, one purpose, and her whole life is what this is going to be built for. It's what he wants. See, she's going to have one job, just to rip. And we ain't worried about fuel miles. We ain't worried about economy. We ain't worried about none of that. We're just, you'll see. And the heads that's going on this thing are a one-of head. They are extremely, I've never seen, I mean, the heads alone are rare. But for what was been done to these and who did these heads, it's a one-of deal. And like I never wanted to part with them or anything like that. But for this combination, for him, that's what I get these heads for. They were made for this combination, and they're going to change. They'll make the engine. The cam and these heads is going to make this thing. I'm going to get to work on it. So here you go, Marco. Alright, got the cylinders home cleaned up. Looks good. Not bad at all. Now I'm doing my little tiny lifter home. Honing the lifter bores. I'll buy solid brake cleaner and flush it out real good, and then start doing the bottom end. Alright, this is the crank for this deal. You see this number right here, 3815822. See that? But right there is your casting number. It is legit. This crank with those rods and those pistons was a complete rotating assembly. And I really don't want to break it up. So, very rare crank. I've seen maybe be one other one in all my life tearing these freaking 283s and other stuff apart. I want to see one other crank like that. I don't know if I could find. There's one here for like $1,500. But if somebody was doing like a legit numbers matching deal, they would need a crank like this. But we're putting it in a race truck. Just cleaning all the journals up. Make sure everything's to my liking. Alright, got a crank set down on there. I got to torque this down and then put the front one in, torque the front main, and then set the end play. But I went ahead and lubed everything up. Everything's got assembly lube and stuff on it, so that when I put it together, it should be good. But I love these builds like this. It's like old stock stuff. like GM block, man, GM crank, all these things. I mean, I love the newer stuff, but this is real deal old school stuff. It's just cool. But he's going to shift this thing at 7, not 8,500. It'll go to 7 grand and he'll shift it. There's really no need to go any further than that with the cam and the heads that I got for it. It'll make the power at that RPM where it normally would with a crappy set of heads or a smaller cam, you know, 82, 8,300 RPM. When I had an engine like this, I'd had the little Dookie, it's probably like a 540, 550 lift on a 106 lobe separation. Flat tappet cam. I had terrible heads. I had hump heads on this. And it run good. Like, it broke all kinds of stuff. But I had to turn the guts out of this thing to get any kind of power out of it. But the combination I'm putting together for him, he's not going to do that. I mean, it'll turn 7,000 RPM. To me, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of RPM. Like Colton's 4.6 right here. This one goes to 74 every time it sets down in it. This can go there. It'll go 7, 73, somewhere in there. And that's where it'll need to shift. But, yeah, it ain't going to have to see no 9,000 or nothing like that. So, it should be good. And I had a set of floater rods, but there's that whole assembly I'll show you in a video. That assembly was so heavy. And the key to this is keeping the reciprocating, the rotating weight down as low as you can get it. With a forged piston and all this stuff. I know people are going to say, oh, them rods won't take it, them rods won't hold up. Personally, I have sent these rods to 8,500 RPM. Personally, in a 283, I have run them things that far with them rod bolts and everything. And it took it like a boss, man. Pass after pass after pass, up and down the road. Colton had them in there. They're good. So, but yeah, like I said, I was going to run a H-beam in this, but the weight was so, I mean, it was so heavy. Then it just upsets the whole balance of the crank, and then I have to go have everything rebalanced. It's just, keep it below 7,000, keep it at 7,000 RPM, and it'll live. I'm telling you, it'll do fantastic. It's 8,000, 8,500 is where things start to come apart. Just having a 3-inch stroke, I mean, you can get away. It's got a big bore and a short stroke, and that will make power. This ain't gonna be no power monster, but it'll make power. They just ain't got no torque. But that's why you got to turn them up like that. He'll probably run a heavy flywheel on it. So he can zing it on up there. But it's going to have a tunnel ram. I got the tunnel ram and the 2 carbs. I got to rebuild the carburetors. I built them a long time ago, but I got to rebuild them again because they've sat for so long. But it's going to be tunnel ram, 2 600s, really killer heads, solid roller cam. It ought to do what he wants to do with it. And I mean, and it's I wouldn't say budget friendly because this stuff is not cheap at all anymore. I mean, it's not cheap at all. That crank alone and that rotating assembly was, I don't want to tell everybody how much it was, but it wasn't cheap to get the original stuff. But should be good. I'm going to torque this down and set the end play, and I'll keep on rocking and rolling with it. So I can get some rods and pistons down in there. Alright, crank is all torqued. Everything's good. Went to 65 foot-pounds. We got, let's see here, got the end play set. There we go. It's about 4 thousandths. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, right at 4. There we go, end play set. Good deal. This thing, I done seated it. Let me move this out of the way. She is smooth. Alright, fixing to put the rods in. But there's a rod bearing. So it's got narrowed for the fillet radius. Forged crank. So, and these are coated bearings. Good bearings. Getting her together. All right, this is Mark Oster's 283. Bottom end is together. All right, this is a M55 HV milling. Put that in there, and then I'm gonna knock the pickup in it. Then I'm gonna drop the pan on and set the depth, and then I'll tack weld it on. And we'll keep moving on from there. This is M55 HV milling, high volume. It puts out about 30% more oil volume than a standard pump. You could run a standard pump on this, I mean, but this has got a little thicker clearances on the rods and mains, so HV is just a little bit better for a combination like this. So just set my clearance and stuff between that and the pan, put the new pickup in, put the set of clearance, and I'll torque that down, and that'll be good to go. Then you put the pan on it. All right, let me show you something. When setting the depth on these things, I have another pan that I have the bottom cut out of that I can just measure straight down from the bottom with my calipers and set it where I want. But I forgot to grab that pan. This is a mock-up, just an old crappy pan that I have as a mock-up pan that we usually throw on something, you know, put in whatever. This is a mock-up, but you can take. I got a little flashlight I carry with me everywhere. It's got a little magnet on the bottom. I stick it down in there, and then I shine the light up, and you can see. So right there, there's the top of the pickup, and there's the top of the pan. With that light in there, you can actually look in there and see. I mean, it's kind of hard to see with the camera, but I can stick my eyeball right there and I can see it perfect. And I need to come up probably a 1/16 of an inch, and then we're set. All right, oil pump stuff is on, torqued, depth is set, all that's good. Now I'm gonna do the roller cam. The naughty roller cam. I'm not gonna tell you what the specs are. It's big. It's a big solid roller. Got that, and I got some Powers lifters for it. All right, timing chain, all that stuff. I got the lower end on, and you can advance a retarder. I just usually zero them out. That's what I always do. I have advanced them and I have retarded them, but for a combination like this, I'm gonna leave it zeroed out. I mean, I could retard it, and that would kill. I'd be able to close the intake valve point a little later and maybe run 93 on it, but I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm just gonna zero it out and slap her in there, and she should be good to go. All right, here she is. This is a big solid roller, man. Man, I wish I could tell everybody what the specs is on it, but I can't. It's a lot of duration, a lot of lift, and a healthy lobe separation. This thing is going to wrap. I'm going to lube up the journals on it and put a little oil on the lobes, and then slide it in there. That way I can start setting my in play. All right, slap the cam in here. Big old solid roller is in. All right, now comes the fun of setting in play, which I ain't gonna record all that. All right, here is cam button, which I got these other ones. Just trying to figure out which one. All right, in order to set the proper in play, I didn't have a long enough cam button that I could polish down or cut down. This still took like a freaking hour to settle this up. So what I've done is I welded a plate to the inside of this to take up the distance, and then that cam button will bump against that plate, and we should be set. I mean, the end play is set. The end play is good. But yeah, blue Loctite, 20 foot-pounds, and these are original GM bolts, so they won't come loose. If you put Loctite on them, they won't come loose. They're good. I use them all the time. If you don't use these, and you use like this, you got to fold them little edges over. Blue Loctite, 20 foot-pounds, torque, all good, in place set, dot to dot, top dead center. All right, timing cover and all that stuff's on, in place set, all that's good. I'm gonna flip it over and do the oil pan. All right, oil pan gasket and stuff's on. All right, fixing to shoot this sucker orange. Bottom end is buttoned up. I'll put me another one. All right, there it is. Got some orange on her. No stars yet. All right, working on the heads. There's one after blasting them. Anyway, working on the heads, just clean everything up. Look at that. These are like next level heads. Cast iron. They're next level. These are Probably a one-of set. Look at that work. Look at them ports. That's it right there. I put these new seals and stuff in a while back, but screw-in studs, guide plates, all that. I wish I could tell you about them, but I can't. But I'm just letting y'all people that understand what you're looking at right there. You get it. Those of you that are out there that know what you're looking at, you say. Everybody else, just an old set of cast iron heads, nothing special. I'm gonna say this: these heads was done by an extremely famous company now that was not as famous back when these were done, and this was back in the era of like Grumpy Jenkins and stuff like that. Is where these heads are from. This is a 292 angle plug head. So everybody keep that in mind. But a company that did these, they were sent off to a certain company, not saying any names, and all this work was done to them, and they were flowed and all this. This is I've been saving these heads for years, for when I rebuilt my 302. I was going to put these on because I had to have a cast iron head, and I've been saving them, but I'm not doing cast iron head stuff no more. Everything I run's aluminum. I like cast iron heads, but these were just too big for anything I had. But I just don't mess with cast iron head stuff anymore. I slap aluminum heads on them. You can get CNC port aluminum heads, or a aftermarket, just aluminum head, for $1,000 or less most of the time. So it's kind of what I just run on everything. But this is a historical, like, these things mean something. Like, they can never be duplicated. They can never be replaced. They're a one-of type deal. So they belong on that motor, on that engine, and that's where they're going. So I'm happy about that. The amount of hours that somebody probably put into these is, I'd hate to think about it, but there you go. I can't say too much about them. Like, I can't give you the specs and all that stuff on them, but they're pretty special heads. Let's check this out. Look at the valve. Alright, I am assembling these heads. I was going to use a comp cam spring that I had, but these are actually, I was checking everything, and these springs are here actually a little bit better than the comp cam springs I got. So Marco sent me these. These are a Speedway. These are, I can't tell you the spring installed height, I can't tell you the spring pressures, I can't tell you none of that, but just look at that. Look, I can barely get that thing to compress. There, barely. So if that tells you anything. These are titanium, super light. Know why they're super light? So this thing will rev. So you see that? See how much oomph I had to give that thing to compress? I'm not telling you nothing, but I'm telling you. I was going to run 3/8 studs in this with a stud girdle, but I'm rethinking that whole plan. I think I got to go with 7/16 studs. So I have to order some 7/16 studs to put in this rig, because these 3/8 they're not gonna take it. But I'm gonna use this 3/8 and just continue on and put all these valve springs on. I've done set the first one at the installed height, and I've done shimmed, so I can't really And I guess I can tell you what the installed height is. Yeah, the installed height, I can tell you that. The installed height on these suckers is 1.800. These remind me of when we was putting in valve springs on Dad's 57, that roller cam and it. Man, them things is tough. I guess I've just got used to doing hydraulic roller springs. So doing these solid rollers, I mean, they got some freaking pressure on them. The thing is, like, this is not, I absolutely do not recommend running this combination on the street. I mean, you can run it up and down the road, like what we do, like take it for a street down or whatever, but I would not drive this thing in traffic. Marco ain't never had nothing like this. So, super nice guy. He come to Bristol one year and I took him for a ride in my car. I talk to him all the time. So, I'm doing this for him. But like I was saying too, the benefit of this combination is he's not going to have to turn, you know, 8,500 RPM. He's not going to really need to do all that. Run the 7 and shift it. These heads and that cam and that, it's going to have a tunnel ramp and stuff on it. With all that, it ought to make the power at a lower RPM. All the old school dudes out there, you'll be pumped on this build. I wish I could tell everybody the specs. I wish I could tell you the cam specs. I wish I could tell you the static compression ratio, exactly what it's going to be. I wish I could tell you all about these heads, but I just can't. And the only reason is because he's wanting to go race this deal, so I respect that. Alright, installed height is 1.800. I'm not going to tell you the specs. I can't. I was just talking to the other camera. I can't tell you all this. But these springs are wicked springs. They are killer springs. But yeah, wish I could tell you, but I can't. So I'm going to, this head right here is pretty much done. I have to go from, I was going to run a 3/8 screw-in stud, but I'm going to upgrade to 7/16. Just it'll be better. 7/16 screw-in studs and guide plates. I got to order some of those. But I can go ahead and bolt this head on as it is if I wanted to. I still got to do the other one, clean it up and check the valves, lap the valve. Well, I've done lap the valves, but I've done check the pattern on the valves, done lap the valves. You can see these suckers are, they're massive. But yeah, I'm gonna get to work on the other one now. And these are titanium. They are super lightweight. All right, got the lifters in. These are Howard's 0122, well 9122 plus 300 solid rollers. Got the heads put together, cleaned up. Fix the drop of heads, head gaskets, and all that stuff on it, and torque her down. Moving right along. Everything's lubed, everything's clean, all good to go. All right, this head's on and torqued down, 65 foot-pounds. Good to go. And I ground this one to fit a 9/16 bolt. Socket. All right, heads are on and torqued. Everything is good. Get the studs, push rods, and all that stuff in there tomorrow. Guide plates. I'm just going to take them out of my other set of heads I got, and I'll just order some replacements. Then I got to take the rockers, and I'm going to slot the rockers to get away with this much lift. I'm going to run a stamped steel rocker instead of a roller rocker, simply so that I can run the stock valve covers. This thing is going to look like a 283, except for the tunnel ram. All right, got the guide plates in. These are like a Pro Comp guide plate, whatever you want to call them. Assault Racing, Pro Comp, whatever. They're all basically the same, but I like these where they come up, the raised ones. Flat ones work good, but I like the raised ones a little bit better. They're the exact same as a Comp Cam or any others. They're just, you know, $15, $20 cheaper. So, guide plates, screw-in studs, and all that's in. Now I'm going to get the rockers, and I'm going to elongate the rockers. I'm not running a roller rocker on this. I know people are like, oh my God, you're not running a roller rocker. Well, but the reason I'm doing that is so that I can put stock valve covers on this deal. I really want to keep the bone stock, you know, 283 look for this. So, I mean, it'll have screw-in studs and all that stuff, but it's going to have stock rockers. It's got guide plates. It's got a massive solid roller cam. Really expensive solid roller lifters and all that stuff, but that don't matter because you'll never see none of that. what you'll see is valve covers and heads. So, and I got a stock 283 water pump. I got to put the balancer and stuff on it, but I'm gonna drop the push rods in it. I got a 89 thousandths wall thickness push rod, 7.8 stock length. So I'm gonna drop the push rods in, and then I'm gonna grab some rockers and throw them on and check the pattern. Not check the pattern because it ain't a roller, but check everything, check the geometry, and then go from there. And just like with aluminum rockers, you got to clearance these too. Clear a 1550 spring. Just take a little bit off right there, and I'm gonna clean all these up real good. Before I put them on there, I'm just gonna clearance all 16 of them. Fit them one at a time till they're right, and then we'll be good. The geometry is like perfect. But see, this is what I'm talking about clearancing. See, you can see between that spring and that. Alright, I got them, all the rockers clearanced. Now I'm going to put them on and torque them down and set the lash on a couple. Rotate everything around. I still got to clean the balancer. Forgot about that. I got to clean the balancer and knock the balancer on, because on these 283 cranks, on these early cranks, they're not tapped, threaded for a balancer bolt. So I got to knock the balancer on. Alright, this ain't the best looking balancer in the world, but it is the original balancer to that rotating assembly, so that's why I'm using it. I mean, it's a dampener. For an internally balanced engine, it's a dampener. For an externally balanced engine, it's a balancer, but I call them all balancers. And just to keep it, like, let you know how old this stuff is, this is made of steel. Look at that, see where the rust is? Look at that. That ain't aluminum, that's steel. So, they made things in quality back in the 60s and 70s. Not today, but I'll put that on there, and I've done found true TDC on this, rotate it. So I'm gonna put this in, and I'm gonna bend it to line up exactly with this line. That way I know that's true top dead center. In order to do that, you stop the piston, you mark a bouncer, you roll the engine back around till the piston stops again, you mark a bouncer, then you divide between those two marks. That gives you true top dead center. And then you put that right on your zero, and then you're good to go. Yep, so this is what I was talking about. I have to take this Dremel to clearance this, and then I have to elongate the slot a little further. Like that. So I got to do all 16 of them one by one and elongate that slot so that it allows for the full lift without binding. Alright, all these suckers are clearanced. So now everything's clearing, and I open the slot, so now that's clearing. Now I'm going to start setting the valves. Setting them at cold 26, so when they heat up it'll be about 20. Tighten up about 6 thousandths with cast iron heads on cast iron block. So set them at 26, and they'll tighten up to about 20, 21. And that's what the running clearance is for this cam. Hot. Alright, I am mocking everything up. Look at everything. I got a clearance right here and right here on this intake to where this linkage, the actual arm, will function and work. Yeah, you set it like that, and the carburetors look way down. See, but you got to keep in account too that when this engine is in the vehicle, engine's probably not going to be level. Engine's probably going to be down a little bit, which will level the carburetors out. So, but that's the right way the top of the plenum is supposed to go. But I always call them TR1Y, because the TR1X is the original, and TR1Y is the street version with a smaller plenum. The plenum actually helps the signal a lot better. They work really well. I always end up putting these smaller plenums on all my stuff. Alright, got the lower section of the tunnel ram bolted up, gasket on, everything torqued down. Nice squash on the sealant. I cleaned up a little bit. I could have really cleaned it, but it's going in a mud truck, so there's no real need to really clean it. Alright, I'm cleaning up these valve covers. Like they are, they're pretty rough, pretty ugly. I'll clean them up. So I got all that rust and stuff in them. I'm gonna clean them up and use them. That way, I can use the baffle and a PCV system to run up there and vent this crankcase pressure. I'd stick it on there, but I don't want to get that crap in that. I got these and I got some 327 ones, but the 327 ones have a bunch of holes drilled in them for breathers, and I ain't got no more of them breathers. So I'm going to put these on there, and these will work fine. Stick that little baffling crap in them. So that'll be good. I'm going to clean them up, shoot them orange, and slap them on there. Alright. A lot of work, but look at that. They are pretty clean. Clean them orange side now. Not bad at all. This is the way I used to do stuff. Back before, like, we'd buy all brand new parts and stuff like that and everything else. I used to take junk that nobody else wanted, clean it, rejuvenate it, put it together, and make it fly. You know, just old GM stuff. So that's kind of what this build's about. I mean, it's got good stuff. It's got good cam, good lifters, you know, good stuff like that. Good springs, really good heads, all in it. But it's still just old school. Well, the cam's not old school, and the lifters aren't old school. But the bones of the build, the crank, the rods, the pistons, the block, tunnel ram, it's all old school stuff. So that's pretty awesome. It just takes me back to when I was building them first engines. You just take what you can find and take stuff that people don't want. Take, you know, whatever you can get. Make as much power as you can out of it. So that's pretty awesome. He's gonna have to get him a MSD distributor with a bronze gear for that cam. But just by eyeballing this thing, you'd never suspect it was, you know, anything special. And that's the point. Once I stick the valve covers on it, it'll just be like a regular old small block. Absolutely nothing special. I mean, even if you pull the valve covers off, at first glance, hey, just stamped steel rockers, nothing special. And that's the point. You don't want people to, you know, although I am saying all this on video and whatnot, which I don't think it matters. And I'm going to rebuild these carbs. I'm not going to polish them. I'm just going to clean them up a little bit and re-gasket them and kit them again, as I did them probably 4 years ago. And that'll be good. Twin 600s. He don't need 660s. I mean, he could go with 660s, but these 600s will do just fine. I've run 600s on my combination in the early days, but it's got fender well headers. I mean, it's going to be a cool, really cool combination. But I got to build my little thing to block this off for the downdraft tube. But yeah, that's awesome. I've held on to this combination for a long time, and I was going to put it back in Calamity. We'll do another combination just like it for Calamity, but that's what he wants, and I'm happy to give her a new home. I don't know if I've told everybody not with the static compression ratio. It's about 12.5 to 1 static compression. The intake valve closing point, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that I might be able to start it up on 93. I doubt it. I'll probably have to throw some 110 in it to get it fired up on the stand, but it's only going to take about, you know, a couple gallons. So that's like 20 bucks worth of 110 or 112, either one, whatever they got. And to another thing, this stuff is a throwback to, like, as far as stock rockers and stock rods and stock crank and stuff like that. This is where it started. This is the true foundation of hot rods and drag racing and stuff like that. Like, this is a real cast iron head. This is real stuff that's been around. It's been around since, you know, the 60s. So it's just, man, it's just cool that this stuff was built to do what it's done, and all these years later, years and years and years have gone by, and it's back to doing that stuff again. And oh yeah, it's upgraded with the cam and lifters and you know, better valve springs and stuff like that, but it's still the roots of hot rodding. And it ain't like, it's not pretend. It's not, you know, having a Brodix block or a dart block or a bow tie block or whatever this and painting it orange and saying it's a 60s deal. It's not. It ain't buying aluminum heads and shooting them orange and putting humps on the front. That's not real. That's pretend. This stuff is real. These heads have been around since the 70s. Now the tunnel rams didn't come around until 69. The TR1, the bread box, the very first one, and then the TR1X with the big large plenum, and all this was filled in. This is the TR1Y, which is a street version. It's just a updated version of the old one. But I mean, stock pan, stock timing cover, stock balancer, stock crank, stock rods, forged TRW pistons. It's just stock stamp rockers, original 283 nuts for these things. But in the early days, you know, in the 60s, when people were racing these engines, they didn't have the aftermarket availability like we have now. So they had to make do with what they had. So they would turn these suckers to the moon with stock internals, stock stuff, and they would live. They would survive. So everybody out there that's probably going to say, oh, that'll never live, that'll never work. I've had this combination together before. 8500 I was running it to. He's not going to do it with this, but I turned the guts out of this engine. I had the tack was pegged and the valves was floating like crazy, and that bottom end come apart looking just like it did the day you put it in there. So that was stamp rockers, hydraulic flat tappet cam, only a 485 lift. There's a 310, 485, 485 on a 106. And that's advertised duration, it's not actual duration. Actual duration was like 241, 240, 240, something like that. But it collapsed all the lifters. It tore up push rods, it bent stuff, all that, but the bottom end was flawless. And that was after Colton had run that motor pass after pass after pass after pass with the 5-speed S10. So this old stuff, man, it takes a beating and it keeps on going. It's pretty awesome. But the history, what he's getting, the history of what's in this thing is, man, that's awesome. Like if these parts could talk, if all this stuff could talk and say all that crap, where they've been, like if those heads alone could talk about what they've been through and what they've been run on, and I mean,
there is no telling, brother.
I was just telling the kid, I was talking to folks about, like, man, the history in an engine, in a build like this. I mean, that old crank, them old rods and pistons, and where all this stuff's been and the life that it's lived. I mean, there's no telling, man.
Those heads was probably on one of the fastest drag cars they was around back in the day.
Oh yeah, that this stuff is all going back together and fixing to run again and do what it was bred to do. It's like a hunting dog. You're letting it get out there and do what it's bred to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looks so good. Looks just so simple. All right, there it is with the water pump and everything. Well, she looks bone stock, which is that's the way it's supposed to look. But man, I was telling Marco, these heads got my name on them right there. So we done that in case anybody ever took them. I'd be able to be like, look, my name's on them. So I told him he could grind that off if he wanted to, but he said no way. He's gonna leave it. So that's pretty cool. But I'm about ready to wrap it up. I need to work on Tim's car. I need to rebuild these carburetors still. But that's a wrap on that for right now. Next week we'll hear it. Alright, I had to order a special filter for this thing. It's a Wix Racing Series filter. But this is Marco's 283. I'm fixing to set it on the stand. Wire everything up, hook it up, prime it. Make some noise with it. Alright, fixing to give this thirsty little small block a little VR1. AutoZone had this for $28.99 versus Advance is $34.99. So, anybody out there need to buy VR1, go to AutoZone. It's like $4 or $5 cheaper. I bought the last jug they had, so can't go to the AutoZone around these parts, but go to the one around your parts. Alright, got her on the stand and I am priming it right now. And we got about 40 with the grill. Alright, engine's primed. I run through the carburetors right fast, checked a few things. The gasket stuff was in them wasn't bad. I mean, not too bad. They were a little wore, but I mean, nothing that I didn't think would be able to seal. But yeah, Kerry went to grab him some fuel, run through these carbs right quick. They ain't the best looking carburetors anymore, but he don't want them polished, he don't want them purty. He just wants them to work. So that's what we're going for. And yes, these are vacuum secondaries. If I had a set of 660s, or if he had a set of 660s, I'd have them on there. But vacuum secondary 600s will work just fine. They're good carburetors if they're built right. The biggest thing with this is going to be the initial delivery. I think it needs a 50cc accelerator pumps on primary, on both sides. And the softest springs you can get in the secondary, which I've already done, the softest springs I can get on the secondary side, but I don't have 50cc accelerator pumps for these. When I built them, when I had mine on my 302 that was in my 64, and I was running 600s, I had 50cc accelerator pumps, 38 shooters, and they worked really, really well for vacuum secondary carburetors. And I had the lightest spring I could get on the secondary side. But yeah, I had mine set up to come in pretty fast. These should come in pretty quick. They won't do it on the stand because they're not loaded. But the belt, they should work. And I had to like jerry rig me a setup here for these feed lines. So I'm gonna probably have a T just run to them out of one line. But they should be close. I went 64s. On the Jet 6.5 power valves, so it's not going to enrich, and it probably realistically needs a 4.5 or a 2.5 with this cam, but 6.5 it'll compensate for the smaller Jet. It'll enrich in faster. So 64, I think I went 68 on mine with, like I said, 38 shooters and 50cc accelerator pumps, and that I had a little bit of a lean spot, but I had a much larger plenum. The larger plenum volume for the TR1X. This is a TR1Y. This is the street version, so it has a smaller plenum. Mine was it's probably double the volume of that, so it needed a whole lot of pump shot. These may not need that. So we will see. Hopefully this thing does good. These heads have not been run in many years. So let's. That way we can put some water in it and do some adjusting and let her play that song. But that was the very first initial start of this 283. Now I'm going to throw some water in it and then we'll really fire it up. Alright, here is Marco's 283. That was initial fire, very first fire. I got water in it now. So I'm going to sit here and let it run, keep it idled up a little bit, and get a little heat in it and check everything. It ain't tuned yet. I will have to get the timing light and put a tune in it, but I mean, it'll fire, so that's good enough. And the carburetors aren't linked together, so I have to kind of work them both. But hey, it runs. That is awesome. Turn that on and. Ready?
fire it up again here in a minute and run it some more, but I need to do a couple things first. But hey, she runs. I'm going to adjust this mixture because I can tell it's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Half turn all the way around.
Yeah, Justin's filming.
Yeah, I'll have the video up soon on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, he said he'd have video up pretty soon on YouTube.
Them rockers come right back.
Yeah, you're going to have some poly.
And look, see where it hit the valve cover? Oh yeah. Yep. We're gonna have to have some.
You need poly locks
and roller rockers,
stud girdles, and tall valve covers.
Yep.
And roller rockers.
Oh well, he's gonna have to run unlimited class then.
Yeah, because you ain't supposed to have that in
nope,
class.
Not in his class, no.
That runs my ears.
Oil pressure's rock solid though.
Oh yeah, oil pressure's almost 80.
Yeah. Up at 170 degrees, I ain't bad at all. Yep. All right, so I revved it right there, and the first revs until the rockers come back loose again. So them stock jam nuts on them rockers just ain't gonna cut it, and this thing wants way more fuel than what that little pump's able to give. So it's gonna make some power. Like it's.
Oh, that's gonna make a lot of power.
It's gonna make some power. And them headers, boy, there's holes all in them things. You can see it sparking and popping out all over the place. I might stick a different set of headers on it because they come back loose. I just run through them and reset them, and as soon as I blipped it above maybe 5,200, you can hear it go clack, 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 clack. So it needs poly locks, roller rockers, and tall valve covers. So sorry, Marco, you just can't have this combination and run them stock valve covers. It won't work. Too much spring pressure.
Bad hammer knocker, son.
Man, I can't wait to put a tune in it. Like set the timing and you know, put a tune in it and all that. But what I'll probably do, I'll snatch it off there and stick it back on the stand until I get some rockers and stuff. He can either order them and have them shipped or PayPal me the money and I'll order them or whatever else. But it definitely needs rockers and tall valve covers and all that. So much for the stock 283 stuff. It just ain't gonna cut it. But that's a wrap. It runs. That's cool.